We're expecting Elizabeth May, although I expect she'll walk in the door sometime quite shortly. I guess I can talk to you for 2 minutes while I'm up here. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Michael Nabert. I've been here in Hamilton for 22 years now. I feel so privileged to have had opportunity to be inspired by some of these fabulous local people that you've seen speak and other people that I recognize in the room. There's a lot of heart in this city. There's a lot of spectacular efforts to do some wonderful good work. And I was privileged to work with the fabulous Brian Montgomery on helping to write the climate change charter and see that come to pass. And so there's all these glimmers of hope that we get in our local politics. It's not enough, obviously, just yet, because at the same time as Hamilton City Council is saying, yes, obviously we do have the right to a healthy environment and we should acknowledge that for our citizens. Or yes, we need to be doing something about climate change, so we'll institute a climate change charter. At the same time, we have the City of Hamilton, the council in Hamilton doing a lot of things to axe the quality of our public transit, rather improve the quality of our public transit. That's making me very frustrated. Right now, they're planning on expanding the airport lands, or the business district around Hamilton's small, losing money airport, on an assumption that an 85% empty business park will magically fill with jobs if you make it much, much bigger than it currently is. And that could represent roughly $1 billion in public investment. That's 1 year's total annual budget for the city to expand an airport. And maybe this might have been a good idea in the 1950s or 1960s, but today, when we know what we know about peak oil and climate change and etc., investing in an airport is a lot like celebrating the success of the automobile by spending a year's budget on a new buggy whip factory. So clearly we've got some distance to travel before we get from where we are to where we need to be, and it's all of the heart and creativity and intelligence and motivation that I see in people in this room and millions of others out there as well that care about the things that we do that is going to help get us there. When we look at the global stage, this morning, the International Energy Agency released a paper that is good news. And I so rarely get to share good news because most of what I do is I go and I talk to roomfuls of people about climate change and sustainability issues and so on, and most of that is bad news. So, it is official as of this morning, according to the International Energy Agency, that last year the global economy grew 3% and emissions grew 0%. Absolutely 0% last year. This is the first time in 40 years that we've seen economic growth around the year without growth in emissions. That is not because any of our politicians are making any significant effort on the problem. That is because of people like you or I making individual efforts to make a difference, people seeing the writing on the wall and doing some changes in the way that we live our day-to-day lives in order to make more sustainable choices. As we continue to see the writing on the wall, there's going to be a point very, very soon when all of the denial that has locked all of our politics in this god-awful gridlock of denial and recrimination is going to start to come apart. Because the other bit of news across my desk this morning was from the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Their water experts suggest that at current rates, California will be running out of water in a year. So California grows between 1/3 and 1/2 of North America's fruits and vegetables. It was originally a desert. It's going to return to a desert. A lot of that agriculture is fed by snowmelt in the Agua Fria Mountains, and the snowpack in the Agua Fria Mountains is 85% smaller than it was last year. So as you can look on the internet, you'll see all of these horrific pictures of empty reservoirs where there used to be full reservoirs. We're draining the aquifers now. The underground water sources are the last place that we can go to tap to replace what we're not getting out of the Agua Fria Mountains. And when we hit that point, that's when things are going to start to change in a big way. Because as long as we talk about climate change collectively by showing people pictures of polar bears, it's very easy to say, well, I don't know any polar bears personally, and yeah, I think they're kind of nice, but I don't see how this affects me. And the point when we start seeing those impacts really hitting our agriculture and etc., that's when all the denial goes out the window. Because at that point, you can't ignore it, you can't pretend it's not happening anymore. And that's when we need the fabulous people that are already working with Hamilton's Victory Gardens to reteach us how to do that on a larger scale. And we can. The city of Havana today grows roughly 48% of the groceries eaten in the city within the city limits. the reason that I was so happy when I first ran across the Hamilton Victory Gardens in the first place is because the Victory Gardens name comes from the practice in World War II when we had rubber drives and all of these other practices to try to help people get together around the war effort and do what we need to do. One of the things they encouraged people to do was to grow your own food. And at that point, in most of the cities in North America, we grew 30 to 40% of the groceries we ate in the city, inside the city limits. And we're going to be moving that direction again. Yes, I am also excited that we're going to be growing our own food. Thank you. On the political front, however, I'm sure all of you are paying at least some of the same amount of attention that I am to enormous and startling changes in Canada's politics right now. Pretty much everybody in this room that wasn't already on a watch list could be on a watch list just from just as a result of having showed up in the first place. It's fascinating to me that part of what seems to be about to break the logjam of denial in US politics is the US military, which is finally coming forward and in an organized fashion with their generals and admirals and so on saying, we know this climate change is real, we know we need to take care of it, it's the largest danger to our security, why are you morons in Congress continuing to pretend that the world isn't what the world is? And that seems to be starting things changing in the US. So at the same time as the US military is saying climate change is a threat to our security, we have the Harper government saying climate change protesters are a threat to our security. This is not a good scenario. So we have to ask ourselves, what can we do? Doing everything that we can on the political front to fight particularly Bill C-51, the new police state bill that is being rammed through Parliament with the brute force of the Tory majority. Tomorrow is the Across Canada Day of Action. I know that here at the Federal Building at noon is where people will be gathering in Hamilton to protest Bill C-51, and I hope to be able to be there, and I hope to see some of you, and hopefully tons of other people there as well. I don't know if that's going to make enough of a difference, but it certainly can't hurt because I'm a firm believer in doing everything that you possibly can to affect the political system. And I am so ecstatic to be here today to introduce Elizabeth May, assuming that I don't run out of things to talk about before she gets here, because she inspires me. And as I spend a lot of time online fighting with people about politics, one of the most common things that I hear said, which is a reasonable argument in some logical ways, that the way to get rid of the Harper government and to steer us away from the cliff that we are racing towards as a civilization is a strategic vote for whoever in your riding is likeliest to have the chance to overcome the conservative incumbent or conservative candidate. There's some good logic behind that argument, but I don't like it. I don't like it for two reasons. One is, as I look at the policies that are currently presented by, say, a Justin Trudeau, who's come out pro-tar sands, pro-pipelines, pro-TPP, pro-CETA, pro all of these things, I fear personally that he's going to be our Obama, that just as south of the border, they got sick of the one right-wing overt nut, and they replaced him with someone that gave a much more populist face, a much more liberal face to what is essentially the same strategies when it comes down to their militarism and financial policy run by Goldman Sachs and food policy written by Monsanto and so on and so forth. I think that if we keep going back and forth on a pendulum between the red and the blue in Canadian politics, that really it doesn't matter whether it is corporatocracy's right hand or left hand that slaps us. And we have to start thinking outside the box. But more so, having been a political animal for pretty much my whole life, I still subscribe to an idea that was instilled into my head when I first started talking about politics with my parents and I was about 10 years old, that maybe you should try to proactively do something to make the future better, not by voting for a lesser evil, but by voting for what you want. So I am going to be voting green in this election, and I don't know whether my local Green candidate has a great likelihood of taking the seat, that even seems unlikely. Having worked with Peter Ormond last year in his provincial election, I know that he knows when he goes up against the leader of a major party, he's not likely to take the seat, but it's an opportunity for him to bring into the public discussion some of the things that we desperately need to be talking about and aren't talking about. And if the main thing that comes out of the enormous growth that I can expect the Green Party to see this year, as the writing is on the wall, and as we are seeing more and more of the overt changes that come along with climate change in the news every day, it's harder and harder not to see this as the big issue. So if Canadians go to the polls and we vote because we hope for something, maybe we're going to pay attention to inequality and we're going to see that guaranteed minimum income is part of the Green Party platform and no one else's. And we could vote for something that we hope for. Or we could go to the polls because we're scared. And this is, of course, what the Conservative government is trying to do to us right now. They want Canadians to be as scared as possible. So as a reasonably rational individual, let me tell you that I'm scared. I'm standing up here scared. I'm scared every day because I spend several hours a day pouring through all of this depressing information about what's happening to the climate and so on. So if we choose to vote because we're worried about the future and we're bad at math, we might vote for the Conservatives because of the fear of the other that they're trying to instill in us, when you are 5 times as likely to be killed by a bolt of lightning as you are by a terrorist in Canada. But if Canadians are going to go to the polls and vote out of fear and they're good at math, they are also going to vote Green because climate change is going to impact every single one of us. And it is time for us to start electing officials that are going to take it seriously and pay something other than lip service to this most fundamental challenge that we have ever faced as a civilization.